serious hurt on them, not on us. Next came the shot, heard round the world, and then a ragtag army of God-fearing farmers, frontiersmen, shopkeepers, merchants that stood up to the most powerful army at that time on earth, the most powerful army on earth. But we sometimes forget what inspired those everyday farmers and workers in that great war for independence. Many years after the war, a young man asked Captain Levi Preston, aged 91, why he fought alongside his neighbors at Concord. Was it the Stamp Act? Was it the tea tax? Was it a work of philosophy? No, the old veteran replied. Then why, he was asked. Young man, the captain said, what we meant in going for those redcoats was this. We always had governed ourselves, and we always meant to govern ourselves. Captain Preston's words are a reminder of what this organization and my administration are all about. The right of a sovereign people to govern their own affairs and govern them properly.
You know, when we teach American history in our public schools, we teach what I call the great man theory of American history and world history in general. Now, well, who do we study? We study Washington and Adams and Madison and Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. That's what we're taught in our schools, and it's good that we learn those things. They're really inspiring stories, right? But if you want to know the real story of the American Revolution, that's not the real story. The real story is made up of people like you, regular people in town hall meetings that got together because they cared about what was going on here on this continent. They cared about this great idea of liberty that had developed in this country. Those are the people of the American Revolution. And my very favorite story from the American Revolution is about a gentleman named Levi Preston. Captain Preston served in the Continental Army. He was right there at the first battle of the American Revolution. In 1843, he was 91 years old, and he was interviewed by one Mellon Chamberlain, who was 26 years old and a school teacher who was collecting the oral histories of the last remaining Minutemen. 91 years old, by the way, back then is real old, right? Average life expectancy was 54. So Chamberlain asked Preston a series of questions, and it goes something like this. He said, Captain Preston, when you went out to face those redcoats that day on the field of battle, what is it that drove you to fight them? Was it the Stamp Act? Were you frustrated by having to buy those stamps and place them in all your documents? Preston said, never saw one of them. The governor locked them up in the armory. That's the last we heard of it. So Chamberlain, knowing his American history, said, was it the tea tax? You were frustrated by those outrageous taxes on the tea. He said, I was a farmer. We never drank any tea. Boys dumped it in the harbor. We thought that was pretty funny. That was the end of that. He asked him, were you reading the great revolutionaries? And he named all the great revolutionary authors of the time. And Preston said, son, we read the Almanac, the Bible, Psalms, Catechism. That was about it. Never heard of any of the men you mentioned. And so Chamberlain goes big and he says, was it just British tyranny? Were you just tired of the heavy hand of British tyranny? He said, never felt a whit of it. Chamberlain says, what is it? What drove you out on the field of battle that day to fight those redcoats? And he said, son, when we went to fight those redcoats, we meant only one thing. We had always governed ourselves, and we always meant to. And them redcoats, they meant that we shouldn't. That's it, the greatest summary of the political philosophy of the American Revolution I've ever heard in my life. And I would posit that today, that same spirit of self-governance is alive in America, and that's what drives the Convention of States movement. Thank you guys very much for being here tonight.